Sermon 90 on Blessed Joseph. 1. It is written concerning blessed Joseph, dearly beloved, that his brothers envied him, and, therefore, could not even greet him. It is true, beloved brethren, that so dangerous is the disease of envy that it cannot even spare brothers, not to mention strangers. Indeed, at the very beginning of the world, Cain, a wicked brother, killed the just Abel through envy. Holy and faithful Joseph, then, was shown to be a more just servant of the Lord because of his tribulations. Through envy, he was first sold by his brothers to the Ishmaelites as a slave, and after having been sold by the very people by whom he had seen himself worshipped, was later handed over to an Egyptian master. However, he always kept the dignity of a noble soul, by his example teaching both slaves and freemen that in sin, not a man's condition, but his mind is a hindrance. How true! The young man is desired by his mistress, but is not provoked to lust. He is asked and runs away. She who commanded in other matters, in this one thing coaxes and pleads. She loved him, or was it rather herself? I think that it was neither him nor herself. If she loved him, why did she want to ruin him? If she loved herself, why did she want to perish? Behold, I have proved that she did not love. She burned with the poison of lust, but did not shine with the flame of charity. He, however, knew how to see what she did not know. Joseph was more beautiful within than without, fairer in the light of his heart than in the beauty of his body. Where the eye of that woman could not penetrate, there he enjoyed his own beauty. Therefore, as he beheld the interior beauty of chastity in the mirror of his conscience, when would he allow it to be stained or violated by the temptation of that woman? For this reason, what he saw you too can see if you will, namely, the interior and spiritual beauty of chastity, provided that you have eyes for it. I will tell you something by way of an example. You love it in your wife. Therefore, do not hate in the wife of another what you love in your own. What do you love in your own wife? Chastity, of course. You hate it in another's wife when you are willing to destroy chastity by intimacy with her. What you love in your own wife, you want to kill in the wife of another. How can you have a prayer of devotion, O murderer of chastity? Therefore, preserve in the wife of another what you want to protect in your own. For in your wife you love her chastity rather than her body. 3. Perhaps you think you love the flesh of your wife, and not her chastity. Indeed, this is a base thought and miserable, pleasurable lust. Moreover, I will not dismiss you without an example. I will give you a very definite reason. You think you love your wife's body. I tell you that you love chastity still more in her. To show you very clearly that you love her chastity more than her flesh, you love it more in your daughter. What man is there who does not want his daughters to be chaste? What man does not rejoice in the chastity of his daughters? Do you love the flesh there? Do you desire a beautiful body when you dread an unchaste one? Behold, I have convinced you that you love chastity more than the flesh. Finally, if you have a beautiful wife, but perhaps an unchaste or wicked one, do you love her beautiful body and not rather detest it? External physical beauty is indeed considered, but the interior loveliness of chastity is sought. If this does not exist, all love of the body immediately grows cold, because although beauty is to be considered, an interchange of love within is sought still more. If then I have proved that you love chastity, why have you offended yourself by not loving it within you? What you love in your daughter love also in the wife of another, because your daughter will become another's wife. Therefore, love chastity in yourself also. If you love the wife of another, presently you will not have it. But if you love chastity, with the Lord's help you will presently possess it. You ought to love a beautiful servant or the elegant wife of another in such a way that you seek it everywhere outside of you. If you love chastity, what you love is yours. Holy chastity coaxes you within the chamber of your heart. Sweet is its embrace, for association with her involves no bitterness. Chastity does not quarrel with you, subvert you, or in any way contradict you in the home of your conscience. Therefore, love it both in yourself and in others, in order that you may possess eternal bliss. If then you love this very beautiful virtue, which is called chastity, you will imitate blessed Joseph, who refused to consent to illicit intimacy with an unchaste woman, spurned the lust of another, and esteemed his own virtue. That woman, however, did what she threatened, lied to her husband, and was believed, and still God was patient. Holy Joseph was thrown into prison. He was held captive like a guilty man, although God was not offended by him. Nor did God fail him there, since he was not guilty in his sight. The Lord was with holy Joseph. Because he loved what was holy, he was not overcome by the love of a woman. Her age did not arouse the chaste mind of the youth, nor did the authority of the one who loved him move him to associate with his despised mistress. With her own lips she plotted against the young man. Secretly and without witnesses, the shameless woman seized him with her own hand, urging him by her insolent words to sin. Indeed, he is not overcome there, but as words followed words, so one thing followed another. Although he had refused when asked repeatedly, still he was seized at the time he fled. For you have admired the chastity of Joseph, now behold his generosity. He repays hatred with charity. When he saw his brothers, or rather enemies in his brothers, he gave evidence of the affection of his love by his pious grief when he wanted to be recognized by them. He tenderly kissed each one of them and wept over them individually. As he moistened the necks of his frightened brothers with his refreshing tears, he washed away their hatred with the tears of his charity. He loved them always, as with the love of their living father and dead brother. He did not recall that pit into which he had been thrown to be murdered. He did not think of himself a brother sold for a price. Instead, by returning good for evil, even then he fulfilled the precepts of the apostles which were not yet given. Therefore, by considering the sweetness of true charity, blessed Joseph, with God's help, was eager to repel from his heart the poison of envy with which he knew his brothers had been struck. 5. Truly, brethren, what does envy offer the unhappy person whom spite gnaws at with the secret claws of conscience, when it makes the happiness of another a source of torment to him? What reward will he receive from his hatred, except terrible darkness of soul, and the horror of a mind in confusion? May he who always grieves in countenance and in spirit torture himself, with the wish whereby he wants to injure another. When disquieted by these cruel goads, he is deprived of all advice and moderation of mind. Therefore, brethren, let us watch the assault of this vice, lest perchance we become sharers in the works of the devil, and together with him be condemned by an equal sentence. As it is written, by the envy of the devil, death entered the world, and they who are in his possession experience it. This vice does not injure very much those at whom it is aimed, but it first afflicts more gravely and dangerously those from whom it proceeds. As rust destroys and consumes iron, so does envy in the case of the soul. Just as they say vipers are born after tearing to pieces and shattering their mother's womb in which they were conceived, so too envy consumes and destroys the very soul in which it is conceived. What kind of worm of the soul is this? what corruption of thoughts, what great rust of the heart. It is jealous of God's gift in a man, turns the goods of another to its own evil, makes the glory of others its own punishment, admits, as it were, tormentors to its own heart, by its thoughts and feelings inviting torturers who tear it to pieces with internal torments. No food can be agreeable to such men, no drink pleasant. There are sighs and groans and grief. Day and night the besieged soul is torn apart without respite, for jealousy has no limit. The vice continually and endlessly remains. The more the object of envy proceeds with greater success, the more the jealous soul is inflamed by the fire of malice to greater passion. Because of this, there is pallor on the countenance, a trembling of the lips, the gnashing of teeth, savage words, and unrestrained insults. Whoever is persecuted by the jealousy of the envious man probably cannot shun or avoid it. Moreover, the envious man cannot flee from himself. Wherever he is, his adversary is within him, the enemy is always shut up in his heart. Now when the disciples asked him who was the greatest among them, our Lord in the Gospel replied, "He who is the least among you, he is the greatest." By these words he utterly destroyed and took away every reason and cause for biting envy. 6. Therefore, it is not right for Christian people to be jealous or envious. As the result of humility, they rise to the heights. Listen to Blessed John the Apostle say in his epistle, "Everyone who hates his brother is a murderer." And again, "He who says that he is in the light and hates his brother is in the darkness and walks in the darkness, and he does not know whither he goes, because the darkness has blinded his eyes." If a man hates his brother, he says, he walks in darkness and does not know where he is going. In his ignorance he goes down to hell, and in his blindness is thrown headlong into punishment, because he withdraws from the light of Christ, who says in warning, "I am the light of the world. He who believes in me does not walk in the darkness, but will have the light of life." Moreover, how can a man preserve either the peace or charity of the Lord, if he cannot be peaceable or untroubled because of the vice of envy? For our part, brethren, let us with God's help avoid the poison of jealousy or envy, and let us preserve the sweetness of charity toward the wicked as well as toward the good. Thus Christ will not reproach us because of the vice of envy, but will rather praise us and invite us to his reward by saying, "Come, blessed of my Father, take possession of the kingdom." Let the divine lesson be in your hands, the Lord's thoughts in your consciousness, constant prayer never cease, and works of salvation continue. As often as the enemy comes near to tempt us, let him always find us busy with good works. Each one should examine his own conscience, and if he sees that he has been struck with the poison of envy because of the good fortune of his neighbour, he should tear out of his heart the thorns and briars. May the Lord's seed be enriched in him as in a fertile field with increased fruit, so that the divine and spiritual seed may abound in the plenty of a rich harvest. Therefore, if anyone is envious, he should cast out this poisonous gall and remove bitter dissensions. With God's help, he should cleanse his mind which has been infected with snake-like malice. The bitterness of all his envy should be alleviated by the sweetness of Christ. He should love those whom he hated before, as also those whom he envied with unjust detractions. Let him imitate the good, and always rejoice in the progress of those who are better. He should not discredit priests or with poisonous slanders ruin his superiors. By a unifying charity, he should rather be their support. He will be forgiven if he also forgives. His sacrifices will be accepted when he approaches God in a peaceable spirit. Let each one think of the delights of paradise and long for the heavenly kingdom to which Christ admits only the harmonious who are in agreement. Let us reflect, brethren, that they alone can be called sons of God who are peace-loving, according to what is written. By this will all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. And again, this is my commandment, that you love one another. Under his protection may the good Lord bring you to this love by good works. To him is honor and glory, together with the Father and the Holy Ghost, world without end. Amen.